the passage of time, life has changed very little in the Arctic. Ruled by nature and protected by its desolation, the beauty here has remained unscarred. They call this the land of the midnight sun, a part of the world which experiences 24 hours of darkness 2 months a year, while late May through late July, the sun barely sets. We're in Tromso, where archaeological finds show 9,000-year-old settlements. A fishing village where change has been almost non-existent over the last 200 years. We are 350 miles north of the Arctic Circle. A glance at the globe shows Tromso on the latitude with Point Barrow, Alaska. Men and women from 3 continents have gathered this week for one of the fastest winter sports. They've come to compete in the 1990 World Sprint Speed Skating Championships. And good afternoon, I'm Tim Brandt, and welcome to the top of the world, or as close to it as I've come. Just another stop on the road to Albertville. You know, of all the medals that the Americans won at the Winter Olympics in Calgary just 2 years ago, half of them were won in the sport of speed skating. And 2 of America's biggest winter sports stars are here. Bonnie Blair, the defending world sprint champion, and 2-time Olympian Dan Jansen. They've come to the Arctic in an effort to establish themselves as the fastest speed skaters in the world. And working with me today, just across the bay on the 400-meter oval at the base of the hill, is former world champion Leopoldus Miller. Leah?
The story here in Tromso is the weather. Rain and sleet make for unfair conditions for all of the skaters. Americans Bonnie Blair and Dan Jansen have been the best, the elite of their generation of speed skaters, and they've both won the World Sprint Championship title once before. Bonnie Blair, the reigning ladies World Sprint Champion, is back to defend that title. And if she can successfully do that, she'll be the first American woman in 14 years to win it back-to-back. Dan Jansen won this title 2 years ago, and if he can recapture that title here, he'll be the first American man since Eric Heiden to win more than one. The key to their success, however, is going to be their performance in this kind of weather.
Both men and women skate 2 500-meter and 2 1,000-meter races to establish the world sprint champion. The skater with the lowest combined scores declared the winner. And once all the details for this Arctic event were put in place, the women's 500-meter race was set to begin. American Bonnie Blair, who won the Olympic gold medal at this distance, was paired with 24-year-old Angela Hauck, East Germany's best women's sprinter.
Ready?
Blair has confidence in her 500-meter because it's been the most successful and the most consistent event for her. But she also knows that Hauck is a worthy opponent because Hauck has the capability of skating just as fast.
Hauck's not known as a quick starter. Her 100-meter time faster than the split Blair had when she set the world record.
Now, normally, because Hauck is in front of Bonnie, I would expect Bonnie to have the advantage in chasing her down. But it appears that she's having trouble negotiating this wet track, and the bigger Hauck seems to have the advantage.
Hauck has beaten Blair 3 times this year in the 500. Down the stretch. Hauck with a time 41.32, a new track record, and Hauck wins the 500.
In the wind, Angela definitely had the advantage over me, but you know, that's the only thing I could do is do my best.
In the men's 500-meter race, the defending world champion Igor ZHELEZOVSKI of the Soviet Union stood atop the men's standings. KI-TAE was second, but Uwe-Jens of East Germany, the world record holder and Olympic champion at this distance, was next. How fast is he? Consider Ben Johnson's 100-meter time at the Olympics.
And it's a fair start. And it is Raymond Turret with a start. It is Ben Johnson with a start. Can Carl catch him? No! It's Ben Johnson! Ben Johnson does it again! Unbelievable! 9-7-9!
Uwe Mai on skates much faster over that same distance.
There's absolutely no time to think in the 500-meter race. And for Uwe-Jens, every movement now is a perfected reflex.
Mai's first 100 meters, 9.71, the fastest of the day. Only 500ths of a second off his world record split.
Everyone's been complaining about the inconsistencies of the ice conditions, but Uwe skates like a hydroplane, just skimming over the surface of the ice.
Mai is undefeated in the 500 this year, 8-0. He finished second at the World Sprints last year, still looking for his first ever world title. His time, 37.16, a spectacular race under adverse conditions. American Dan Jansen, who won this title in 1988, was up next with his teammate Nick Thomas.
Jansen is an explosive skater. When you watch him, you can really see the power, but he hasn't had the international exposure that he normally has at this time of year.
9.64 seconds. That's faster than Mai's world record split.
But you can see, Tim, that he's taking those corners really tentatively, not aggressively like Mai did, and he didn't set up for that crossover backstretch.
Jansen hasn't raced in 2 weeks because of the flu. The corners here critical.
Very tentative on the corners. It doesn't look like his power is coming through to the ice.
He slowed considerably. The final straight. Jansen is laboring. His time, 38.44. Not a good one.
Couldn't get around the first turn. I don't know what my 100 was, but it felt good. But after that, I couldn't even skate.
Immediately after the men's 500, the temperature dropped in the Arctic region, and there was a rapid and dramatic change in the weather. Rain turned to snow within seconds, and the instant blizzard-like conditions brought a halt to the competition. 4 inches of snow in a 30-minute span. The skaters were sent back to their hotel, where they were still uncertain as to the schedule for the rest of the evening. Mental preparation had to be tough. Competitors returned at 8 p.m. for the 1,000-meter race at the 400-meter oval in the suburbs of Tromso. After a delay of 4.5 hours, the women's 1,000-meter race was set to begin, and the leader, Angela Hauck, was first to skate. She also took the lead in the 1,000 as well, although Hauck's time was not impressive, and it opened the door for Blair, who was trailing the leader by 1/3 of a second after the 500-meter race. But Blair is 6 inches shorter, 20 pounds lighter than Hauck, a disadvantage in the night wind. She was not skating particularly fast, and after a disappointing 1,000-meter race, she trailed Hauck by more than a half a second, with 2 events yet to come.
You just have to get out there and know that there's another race coming, and you just get all psyched up again. It's just that psych-up period lasted probably today about 8 hours, so it kind of takes a little bit out of you.
One of the most impressive performances of the day was by Christina Aaftink, a physical education student from Amsterdam. The 23-year-old Dutch skater skated a very impressive 1,000 meters, 1:25.66. That beat Hauck by a full second, the first loss for Hauck this year.
Good. I didn't think my 1,000 was good, but it's pretty good, I think. I'm very satisfied.
So after the first day in 2 events, Angela Hauck of East Germany leads Christina Aaftink and defending champion Blair. The men's 1,000 featured the same major skaters. Dan Jansen of the United States was up first, but he finished with a very mediocre time. Korean KI-TAE held the lead briefly. And then, as expected, 3-time world champion Igor ZHELEZOVSKI from the USSR assumed the lead. But all eyes were then firmly focused on East Berlin native Uwe-Jens Mai. He's appeared invincible this year, but Mai's obviously had a difficult time concentrating on the sport and skating. With the tearing down of the Berlin Wall, talk of reunification has become the main topic of conversation on the streets of Germany. With the power of the Communist Party having been shaken, sports already is being de-emphasized. Consequently, athletes will no longer enjoy the position and security the socialist system allowed them. For Mai, stability is gone, and the future is very unclear.
Sports-wise, it's been my best year, but from a psychological standpoint, it's been my toughest to date. It's a psychological burden to realize how things are changing in your own personal environment. It's unbelievably difficult to concentrate in training and in competitions. It's tough to be focused and still concentrate fully on being first in a race.
His inner strength still comes from a stable home life, with wife Anita and 1-year-old daughter Catalina.
What I've realized is that she has a strong character. She tries to do things her way. There's no doubt she brings a lot of joy to our family. I've noticed she loves to move around a lot. It might be said that she's inherited this from me.
Mai was paired with Andrei Bakhvalov of the Soviet Union for his 1,000-meter race.
And a sprinter in speed skating is very much like a thoroughbred at the Kentucky Derby. They're high-strung but the grace and agility seem to be effortless. But don't be fooled by the beauty and fail to see the power, for Mai is notoriously aggressive, and this is one of his strongest events.
Mai's 200-meter split time, 17.17, a world record pace. Mai is down. Oh, what a tragedy that is. Bakbalov is untouched, but there'll be no world championship for the East German Uwe-Jens Mai.
It looks like his left foot just slips right out from underneath him, and he has no control over that. And in this precision sport, the slightest error is disastrous. Oh, what a disappointment for this exceptional athlete. He's out of this competition.
Meanwhile, 24-year-old Andrei Bakbalov from Moscow finished a strong race despite the distraction by Mai. Bakbalov's time, 1:17.82, put him in third place overall behind his countrymen Igor ZHELEZOVSKI and KI-TAE of Korea. So a dramatic close to the first day in the World Sprint Championships in Tromso, one of the most spectacular places in the world to view the magnificence of the Northern Lights. Near the top of the world, the city of Tromso was prepared for day 2 of the World Sprint Speedskating Championships, although inconsistent weather conditions continue to concern the skaters. As a point of reference, this Arctic city sits near the 70th parallel. American Bonnie Blair was up first in the 500, and it was just 1 year ago she was celebrating her first ever world title in the Netherlands.
When I was having my victory lap with that horse and carriage, what was going through my mind was sheer terror. I thought I was going to crash. That sled just kept seeming to go further and further out, going around the turns, and I was just holding on for dear life. I'm glad that that was me, but I think it's also important for just women in speed skating to realize that the GDR aren't, you know, invincible, and they can't be beaten, because they can.
Blair had a chance to prove it again against Angela Hauck of East Germany.
In her technical efficiency. Hauck, on the other hand, relies on her physical power. But I would think after yesterday's defeat in her favorite race and the conditions again today, Bonnie's got to be at a medal disadvantage.
Blair's not making up the kind of time she needs. She has to make up 0.6 of a second on the overall leader.
And that's not like her. Bonnie is an aggressive skater. She knows she's got to win decisively here, and she just doesn't look like she's attacking.
Hauck has won 5 of her 6 races at this distance this year, 4 out of 5 of those against Blair.
I've seen Bonnie look a lot stronger at this point in the race before, Tim, and she just doesn't look like she's got what it takes here.
It's Hauck and Blair to the finish. Hauck gets Blair right at the finish line. Disappointing perhaps for Blair, but enough for Hauck to maintain her lead after 3 events. In the final women's event of the competition, Angela Hauck raced against the surprising Dutch skater, Christina Aaftink of the Netherlands. Aaftink needed to beat Hauck by 1.35 seconds to take the lead. The final turn in the last stretch. It was Aaftink with another strong performance. She had the lead and would beat Hauck, but it was not enough to knock Hauck off the top of the leaderboard. Hauck's lead was still reachable, still beatable, but it left only Bonnie Blair of the United States, currently 2nd overall, to beat Hauck.
Bonnie needs a 1:24.28 to beat Hauck, and she's on a winning time. But this is the most crucial part of the race. Bonnie's tired, and at this point, she normally had a tendency to slow up on her tempo, ease up on her power, and she can't do that if she's going to have any hope of taking the lead from Hauck. And Tim, she looks really strong here.
Bonnie Blair trying to repeat. She didn't get it. Blair falls short. And Angela Hauck, who fell in the final race just 1 year ago in Heerenveen, wins her first ever World Championship.
During my race, my last race, I thought so many things. And first I thought I can lose the race, and I also thought I can fall, and it was not a good race. But at last I've won the champion. I'm very happy.
Only 0.6 of a second separated Angela Hauck and Bonnie Blair from the title.
Overall, I had 4 really solid races, although this last one was my strongest. I just kind of felt like maybe at some points I was missing just a little bit of something that was making me a little bit out of sync, but finally I guess it took 3 races before I could get the 4th one right.
So the tranquil city of Tromso witnessed one of the great battles between 2 fantastic champions. Bonnie Blair, unable to repeat, Angela Hauck, the new women's sprint champion. The fishing vessels in Tromso had returned to port. The Tromso sun began disappearing over the bay as the men prepared for their final two events. Igor ZHELEZOVSKI of the Soviet Union was the overall leader. KI-TAE of Korea was in second, followed by Andrei Bakbalov and Dan Jansen of the United States. Day two of the men's competition entertained more fans, and Andrei Bakbalov of the Soviet Union took the early overall lead. He skated the 500-meter race in a respectable 38.15. The Soviet had to wonder, however, with the stronger skaters yet to come, if that time would keep him in the hunt. The best matchup was with KI-TAE from Seoul, the best skater to ever come out of South Korea, skating against the Soviet Igor ZHELEZOVSKI, the defending world sprint champion.
ZHELEZOVSKI at over 200 pounds could be compared to a professional football running back. That's visible power. Bay, on the other hand, is a slight build by comparison, and that power is deceiving. It's not measured by his size.
But it's KI-TAE of South Korea with the early lead.
And there's something not right with ZHELEZOVSKI, Tim. At this point, I would have expected him to be much more aggressive. He normally accelerates throughout the whole race, and he's not doing that. Something's got to be wrong.
He's grabbing his left thigh. ZHELEZOVSKI has broken form several times now. KI-TAE with the lead. It'll be KI-TAE who wins this race. And ZHELEZOVSKI's hurt, no question about it. He's grabbing his left leg, and he's in pain. The defending world champion from Minsk is now in a lot of trouble with one race to go.
It appears that shortly after that explosive start, something snapped in ZHELEZOVSKI's left thigh, and he never increased his tempo or his power after that. There's nothing you can do. You feel completely helpless when you don't have any power and any balance on that one leg.
Here, muscle. I don't know what, maybe broke. Oh, yeah.
After three events in the men's competition, Igor ZHELEZOVSKI of the Soviet Union still the leader. But that lead now was tenuous. The Soviet had only 1 hour to prepare himself physically, and he checked the leaderboard to see how much time he had over the others. There was a frantic feel to the locker room area as doctors gathered to work on the leg, and coaches were there to work on the mind. The drama built as Olympic Igor ZHELEZOVSKI made his way to the track and prepared for his final race, trying to become the first man in 52 years to win 4 world titles. The other skaters now sensed that the title was up for grabs. Mental calculations were taking place. Jansen was 1.69 seconds behind the leader, and he was skating against Andrei Bakbalov of the Soviet Union.
Dan Jansen hasn't had a solid race all weekend, and he's got a great split time coming in here. But this is the critical part of the race. This is when it's easy to fall apart. You're tired, you're dead tired. And he looks like he's losing a little bit, Tim.
Bakbalov with the lead, no question. Jansen, who had the fastest split through this race, is now struggling. But it's Bakbalov putting himself squarely in contention for the title. His time, 1:17.64. And after a strong season, it's been a disappointing weekend for American Dan Jansen. His only hope now is for third. But the story here is Bakbalov. Despite the outward signs, the severity of Igor ZHELEZOVSKI's muscle pull still not known. ZHELEZOVSKI was paired again with KI-TAE, who had the opportunity to become the first Korean to ever win a world championship. The final event, the 1,000-meter race, ZHELEZOVSKI of the USSR, KI-TAE of Korea.
The 1,000-meter for ZHELEZOVSKI has always been his most consistent event, and he's always taken the lead right from the start of the race. But there's no power here, Tim. That explosive power is gone.
It's KI-TAE who's exploding. ZHELEZOVSKI's laboring. The first split time, extremely slow for ZHELEZOVSKI.
The 1,000-meter has never been one of Bay's best events, and it's much easier to skate a strong race when you have a strong pair to skate against. But Bay knows that ZHELEZOVSKI is injured and that the crown is within his reach, and that seems to be spurring him on more than any competitor could.
KI-TAE has never been a great second-day skater either. His finish at the Olympics was 5th, the best ever by a Korean. The bell lap.
It seems impossible that ZHELEZOVSKI could win the title, but he hasn't given up. He's getting faster, and it's a real tribute to the champion he is that he's skating on that relentless determination and trying to ignore that pain.
KI-TAE needs a 1:17.55 to beat both the Soviets. He has to pick up his pace. KI-TAE trying to make history. His time, 1:17.51, he did it. KI-TAE becomes the first ever world champion from Korea. Oh, a major upset. Andrei Bakhvalov obviously disappointed. He loses the world title by only 4/100ths of a second. So KI-TAE, a 24-year-old business student from South Korea, is the new world champion. Igor ZHELEZOVSKI, although unable to win his 4th world title, incredibly holds on to 3rd. So the snow continues here in Tromso, Norway, as the 2-day competition comes to a close. 350 miles north of the Arctic Circle, the champions, Angela Hauck of East Germany, takes the women's championship. KI-TAE of South Korea is the men's champion.